Volume off.
We're on.
I guess that's one way to test it,
That's
though.
what I tested, yeah. So yes, I'm going to save this stream to my Facebook and Twitter pages.
High communication. Oh, I can turn my volume off too. 4:45 is the time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm watching it right now. I'm the only one.
Oh, yeah, that. It came on right at 4:44.
Um,
It's you, me, and probably Mark. We're the ones watching.
right. Right. That's why it's always three, right?
Sometimes I keep it up, sometimes I don't. Oh, you put the in your title twice.
I did?
Yeah.
Where?
In the title of the live stream.
Oh yeah, look at that. Wow. I even reread it and didn't see it.
Well,
That is a common error for writers. Not that I'm a writer, but
you are.
I do write.
Yes. You
Whether,
you
whether it
write
makes any sense to anybody
you write
is always a
you
question.
you write quite prolifically.
Yeah.
That was very hard to say.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Coming from Kathy, that's a big compliment, actually.
You know what prolific means, right?
A lot of words.
Yes.
See, I always thought of prolific as being a positive thing. I guess it depends on whether the words are of value or not, I guess.
Right.
So
I
either
think
way,
they
you
are.
could take it.
I think they are.
Some of them are. Some of them aren't. It's very clear to see that I. Mm, yes. 900 pages later. So let me go over to the chat and see if I can bust it out and put it on live, which I don't even know if I did that last time. Still don't know what I missed when I don't put it on live. Hard for me to comprehend. Okay, so hello out there in internet land. So since it might be some minutes before anybody gets here, if they want to come in here, I'll just start by talking about the picture that I used to this. It's another one of those pictures that was put together from the Dawn spacecraft of what some are calling dwarf planet series. And I was looking at it, and I was looking at the different dots in different places, and I was thinking, And then when I was looking at them, I was thinking that they might be spacecrafts, some of them, okay, and or labs. Maybe there's each spacecraft can be a lab in itself, or a department of the lab or something. But so I didn't think all those thoughts. I'm just adding to it now. But the thought that I got was, what if Atlas was going to rendezvous, was coming very close to Ceres? Because it's going within, it's dipping into, oh no, actually, yeah, that may be a total illusion. Because Ceres is outside the orbit of Mars. And so it is coming in that same plane, though. So, yeah, it's between Jupiter and Mars. Yeah, it's within the asteroid belt. It is. It is. That's true. Right. So that thought does make sense. I was just seeing that it continues to go into the orbit of Mars relative to the Earth. So before it actually dips out of that orbit of Mars and then goes back into wherever it's going. That's the way the trajectory is now, anyway. But maybe it's changed in the last few days, for all I know. So, but I don't think for a minute. I don't know. I can't, justify this, I guess. But it goes along with Revelation 19 in my mind a little bit. So if there's nobody going to be here, let me see if there's anybody listening yet. Oh, there's another person listening. That's good to hear. I'll give it a few more minutes before I talk about what I consider to be the most important part of these live streams, talking about things that T and Do actually said, T and or Do and crew. But because the Revelation game is the prophecy game, okay? Don't put it that way. And I like that because otherwise we treat it too seriously sometimes. So I think I could be wrong. I guess it depends on the person, right? But um, not that there aren't plenty of things in it that are meant to be taken seriously. But I should say that because there are. But what I really mean by that is that the type of seriousness is the degree of it relative to our lives is what I'm saying that we could give too much to. I mean, it's all options, of course, so it's not too much, but it's like with everything. And this leads actually into the topic of the book, Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Um, and I think the same thing happens with uh, maybe almost everything in the human kingdom, to where the lower forces step in and they change the facts, they change the data, they change the focus, they change the meanings, they change uh, everything they can think of, I guess, related to when something happens that's real and true. So, but the next level doesn't let them change everything. So the next level by volume allows some of it to still be among us, some of the truth, some of what's real. And By volume, it's very little, like in terms of words and descriptions and things, relative to the body of misinformation that is like huge, billions of volumes of information, however you want to look at it. Um, but the next level information is so much more powerful because it's real, it's true, it's not made up, it's not discombobulated yet, it's not diluted, it's not distorted. Those are some of the terms that Doe and T used for information from the Bible that has been distorted and diluted, and
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 just
whole
straight up changed.
yeah, and straight up changed, and how like I'll just go right into the Holy Blood, Holy Grail that um, that Doe was talking about as. Let me get reminded. So I'll go right to the notes, the rough notes that I scribbled down and look terrible on the screen. I get criticized about. I can understand that. You better do some more editing, Sawyer, before you make your presentation for your screen. Well, it shows how bad of a proselytizer I am. Even though,
I think you should stop using that word.
yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, I'll move on because I'm not a proselytizer, even
Okay.
though I am trying to be proactive about the truth. I don't know if that word is rooted that way, but so so Doe is talking about that, and this was from the audio tape 283 that Kathy and I listened to right before we started the stream, and uh, where but people that don't know what the audio tapes are, just this is a tape that Doe made. He's the author, and and we recorded it, and I was working on the recorder task of the with sorority, mostly as a secondary, but with sorority as a partnership, sometimes as a primary. But if sorority wasn't available, and he's talking to the students that were with him at the time, which could have been uh, uh, any number of students, but in this
Sounded
case,
like it was about 35. Well, I mean, in the class at that time.
right, there was about 35, which was interesting and talked about in the tape as well. I think Sunodi brought it up, referring to some other document, maybe in the pyramid decoded one,
Something. Something.
that was talking about there being 35
Something. Okay.
uh, participants or something, or elect members um, in some aspect, and that's how many students there were approximately, even though some left after that meeting. Um, and so that number didn't stay that way. But then it got close to it again, you know, by the 39 and the 43 if you count, or 44 if you count Rick Odie and Just Odie and Gab Odie and um, the Grateful Dead roadie person. And anyway, so moving on, it's so those talking to the students, and this is a continuation of tape 282. Um, and I go down into it a little bit to talk about the Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And he, he reflects that he had told us not to read them. Even he got the book for us, but not to read them because he got several copies, I think. And then he said, right on the spot, that he didn't mind if you look at them, if you see them for what they are. If they are distasteful to you, then just put them down. If they aren't distasteful to you, something is.
Mhm.
But he's not saying that that you can't read the whole thing. It's just if the distastefulness is so much that it's bothering you, then put them down because you probably have an influence attacking you. Is my interpretation of that. Because but then he goes into some of the reasons why uh, it might it's this it would be distasteful to because it's what it's doing. It's an intellectual, skeptical, academic criticism of the story of Jesus or part of it. Uh, though they wouldn't, though the people that are doing that writing wouldn't see it as criticisms of what happened, uh,
2,000 years ago.
2,000 years ago. Same, but by saying that Jesus was most likely married and most likely had offspring, and that the crucifixion wasn't genuine, and that the whole thing was a show of political strength, that it was common in those days for people to be seen as divine, like to want to be seen as divine, the rulers, and like in the Egyptian days, the rulers were seen as gods, and that was common then. And don't compare it to what the news media would do to you. Speaking of the students, T and Do and you all would be their version, and their version can hold a lot of true facts, he said, but completely miss what was happening. And that's exactly the truth. So he was basically forecasting what was going to happen after they left. And you see it in the media. And you can watch those media groups talk about this and talk about that over and over and over again and get the facts wrong. But get some facts right, of course, but still completely miss what was happening because they don't have a mind to see it because uh, it's been kept hidden. I'm going to say it that way from those that don't seek it out. And that's the way it works with the next level. They don't they know that it's not going to be for everybody to look into and understand at the same moment, in the same way, to the same degree, and with the same application, because it's a process. It's a human kingdom process of school. And so there's no negative really to where we are in the process, except if we don't continue the process. And then it's only a negative because we just won't be growing in that direction. And without growing in that direction, the next level might not find that our souls and spirits are growing enough, like a plant that's growing enough to become a tree, or to become even just a flower or produce some kind of a fruit. If the farmer knows that it's incapable of producing fruit, then the farmer is going to plow that under, or pull it up, or let it grow until harvest time and then pull it up. And Jesus talks about that in the parable of the weeds uh, because what happens is the bugs get it and the birds get it because it's a dying plant and so it doesn't have certain protections, I guess. I'm not sure exactly how that analogy can work 100%, but it doesn't have to. But Jesus did use the analogy of the seeds being planted, and then some were planted on ground that's rocky, so it doesn't actually have dirt to take root in, and some of it's planted, and then the birds eat the seeds. They pluck them out of you know the earth because they gobble them up. That's like an individual that heard the truth and then didn't give it another thought. Maybe that would be a way of looking at it. Um, or even a change of their actions. They didn't question anything that they were doing. That's maybe one way of generalizing what that might look like. And then there was another one um, that they grow for a while, but then they don't have a strong enough root system, so they die um, from that. And that can be seen as somebody that was in the classroom, for example, and then goes against them. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody in that situation can't still come back because we know that the next level gives many opportunities for them to get back. So there's no judgment about that because we don't know what they were up against to begin with, and we don't know how fast they can change. And if they've already changed in some ways, that the next level finds that they're still growing and is going to, bring them back for a future opportunity. So nobody should be calling anybody, any of the former members, Luciferian. To me, that's inappropriate. Even if they're doing things against the next level, that's just not appropriate label to use because we don't can't judge them as being equivalent to that individual that fell away from the classroom and then went against to the degree that that individual went against the next level for the reasons that I already talked about, which are reasons that didn't come from my mind. And you will hear in the audio tapes talked about, I believe. Maybe I haven't gotten to them yet if Kathy doesn't remember them, but uh, talking about you don't know, you really can't judge anybody else. That's what the judgment really is about. But it's our discernment, it's our opinions about things is part of our judgment. And that's why we had that lesson, I could be wrong, right? To not so trust our judgment that we'll stand our ground to the end of the earth or something. And it's easy to sometimes do that, you know. So anyway, moving along, which goes to the second, another part of this audio tape, which is about the self and how, whenever we're talking about how uh, I, or me, uh, I don't think it's not necessarily wrong to talk that way, but it is not the way a member of the next level wants to grow towards. I think might be a way to say it. Because the next level is all based on what somebody can do for somebody else, and primarily what the students can do for the older members. Now this gets twisted, which I have to address it because it's not that the older members need us to do that. See, that's the way that the lower forces come in and will say, "Oh, they we have to please the older members. We have to please God, right?" And they see that as a negative. Some people, and and um, and yet, logic would say that if this place was created and the life forms on this earth were created the systems for producing those life forms was created, and the mind, the ways of thinking, are all part of the opportunity to choose what we're going to have in our heads. I saw somebody the other day on a meme talking about how the demons, how do you fight against the demons? And the person that it was a Tucker Carlson interview with somebody else.
That's awesome.
Did you see that?
I haven't seen the interview yet, but I saw that something. Anyway,
And the person said everything but in terms of how to get rid of the demons, but to stop the thoughts in your head that you recognize as being a negative
hmm,
demon thought. Because demon doesn't mean that uh, it's a highfalutin officer that was a fallen angel from the next level that's giving you the thought. It could be one of the discarnates that are around you and have been around you your whole life, or are passing through the area and you're looking to
okay.
instigate something. And that those would all be demons if you weren't pleased with what you were thinking and acting on. Uh, and you won't be pleased with it if you are pulling on T and Do's mind. And even if you're not, how many times do people get in arguments and some walk away not pleased with themselves, or maybe later they're not pleased with themselves, or they are, and whatever time, doesn't matter when. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but uh, the process is how quickly can we get to the place of thinking, how did we contribute to what that argument was, and I mean that's what I have to go through eventually, but I don't go through it that fast.
Yeah.
I get tricked into it, into holding my line.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's all very difficult, but it's meant to be that way because we can grow from the experiences. And the more we recognize what's happening, the quicker we can have it on the top of our minds to try to, you know, uh, not let it manifest in a negative. Uh, and that's part of the lessons that we have. Those are big lessons. They're not simple lessons. They're huge lessons. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way. As soon as I say it that way, I can hear T saying, "You make it huge by giving it that power." Which I I know that T was uh, true about that, even though um, it's clear to me every day, or not every day, but um, all the time. It happens that where I recognize how um, developed and advanced T's mind is, because I can see how Doe recognized how developed T's mind is, and I can recognize how developed Doe's mind is. Not by necessarily the things they say that are philosophical and not like that. It's by their quick recognition of the negativity and the influences and the demons around them and that are occupying others, and giving them the medicine that they need at the time if they want to continue to exercise those own demons from their own minds. Because the next level members, the older members can do it for us. But if we don't build the strength to do it ourselves, then the next time it happens, we'll go through the same old thing again. So as soon as we can learn to stop the thoughts that are triggering disharmony and have have restraint of those thoughts, uh, the quicker we'll be developing the strength because it takes strength of mind to stop that. It's not easy. There's a lot of force with the influence to because the influences are they know how to push our buttons, uh, and they can have us interpret others in ways that the other person doesn't really have that they're not really correctly interpreting, even though there might be facets of what the person is interpreting within the way something was said or done with others. But uh, but facets are that's the other person's attempt to uh, not go with what they recognize as being a negative um, interaction with somebody else. That if they're trying to get out of it, then if they're expressing themselves as they're getting out of that mind that they thought they were right about and were holding the line about, then there's some residue of that negativity that I think comes through their vibration, through their minds, through their words, and and I've had this happen to me, and a number of times over the years, over many years, more in the last few. Um, and it's really a blessing actually to have that. Even though when I say that, I think, oh wow, I wish I could, you know, because blessings aren't doesn't mean that somebody is anointing you with oil. I mean, where that came from is giving you a massage. That's not a blessing in the real meaning of that word blessing. Blessing is getting a lesson opportunity, something that's difficult. Because there are things, it has to be that way because otherwise we wouldn't grow. If you didn't offer a dog, let's use a dog for an example, training, then that dog's not going to know how to behave in your house. They're not going to automatically stop pooping and peeing where they want to, especially if you don't let them out of the house, right? They're going to,
They gotta go
um,
where they gotta
they can learn to go on like on the pad, right?
go. Yes.
And so they'll learn that. But they can also be taught to let you know when they want to go out, and then you can take them out in the yard and let them go. They can be trained, but maybe after a certain age, it's harder and harder to train. That's what some of the people that do training of dogs do. So it's the same way I think with humans that it can get harder and harder for us to even train our own vehicles because that's what we're kind of doing. We're becoming like trainers of our own vehicles. And if we're going in the direction consciously of wanting to be a student of T and O's, then we would be looking to them and their information as the teacher. And anybody that's talking about their information as a fellow student that's trying to deliver what the teacher provided. whether it's in our own words or it's by quoting them or, and it's interesting that, there's an effort to squash the real words from coming out. Okay. And, I mean, the exact words in the documents and in the audio tapes and everything else, right? Um, but what that forces to happen is something that can be a positive at the same time, because that means that individuals that want to talk about that information can't just post the information and say, just read it. And this is what it means. This is what it is. And if you add anything to it, if you try to bring any understanding of those words and the usage of those words and the context of those words, uh, um, that you're doing something wrong, um, which can be the case. You can. It depends on the person and how open they are to wanting to ask the next level while they're talking about the next level for help to give somebody what the older members would have us give to somebody else, um, which is an automatic kind of positive dilution. I say positive dilution um, uh, because if you're talking to 12 grades in school, because you don't know which people are committed to the information and to what degree, or even know about it, or even think about it as a positive, then it's part of the job, I think, of somebody that is attempting to be a servant of the next level by getting their information out to try to put it in a positive context. And I can see that that's part of the mindset that some have had to where they don't want the information out for everybody to see. And can say, okay, well, that's not necessarily a negative when you recognize that uh, it goes back to that what I said before, that it's for those with eyes to see, it's for those with ears to hear um, what the spirit is saying, what the mind is saying from the next level. And so if they don't seek it out, if they don't hear a keyword that kind of like gets in their mind and then they walk away from whatever the exposure was to that information and they think, gosh, that's interesting, or no, that can't be the case. If they have that immediate response, oh, that can't be the case. Well, you know that they've got an influence that doesn't want to hear that. And they can listen to that influence. And of course, the people that think this whole thing is a bunch of baloney would say, yeah, this is all your brainwashing techniques. Okay. Well, that's true. It is. But we have to brainwash ourselves. We have to wash our own brains out. And to do that is the hardest task that you can do. Try to stop yourself when you have a thought that you believe in and somebody else is challenging you with that thought. See if you can stop yourself from like coming down on another individual. Um, uh, and even being angry with that individual, even wanting to, shut that individual up. See how hard it is to stop that from happening. Like with any other addiction, see how hard it is to stop an addiction. It's not easy. It's very hard to stop an addiction. And people are addicted to themselves. Some people more than others. And and that can be in different departments. They're addicted to their way of thinking. They have a lot of um, confidence in their opinions and their ideas and their viewpoints and their recollection of history and their recollection of what they say and do and their use of words, can be very good. And they can be very intellectual about things and sound very commonsensical and then not know really what they're talking about from the view of somebody that really is objective, which the only people that are going to be really objective are the ones that are going to be outside the human kingdom, but that they share their minds with the human kingdom. So the degree that any humans uh, have picked up on their thoughts, whether they know about T and O, whether they're religious or not, doesn't make any difference. Well, I mean, it can make a difference. I shouldn't say it that way. But to the degree that they pulled in that mind and those behaviors is the degree into which they can be more objective, I believe. So, uh, so Doe goes on to talk about that Jesus might have been married and he might have had offspring, and the crucifixion might have been a planned event, and that none of that changes anything about what he was teaching. Now, there are Christians that would say if that didn't happen, if the resurrection didn't happen, then all Christianity is lost. And that means they don't really understand what Jesus was teaching. They don't understand that because the lower forces came in at some point in their upbringing and they bought it. Now, it doesn't mean that they continue to buy it, but it becomes very hard to change especially once you become a teacher in that regard. Then you're going to have all these views of yourself as the instrument of other people's salvation and things like that. You're really kind of putting yourself on a pedestal um, um, when you're
Have
claiming
you
to
gone into
save
the
souls.
chat?
No.
Because you haven't gone to the chat since you started the live
Yeah,
stream.
I know. I'm just trying to see if there was anything that I wanted to still go through with that train of thought.
Are you streaming?
Yeah, I think so.
Can people hear you? Yeah, that's the benefit of going to the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah. It's 5 watching now, 42 minutes, and the video is still changing. So I think that part of it's working good. And yeah, uh, I know I can carry on and carry on, so I cannot stop. I do want to go to the chat, so thank you for Kathy. Dude, I think I was at a stopping point because you never know when that's going to be, right? XF is here, says hello everyone. Joseph Coates says, hey you guys. Krell says, hey Kathy and Sawyer in chat. Those are familiar faces. Good to see you all. And so that's all. It's kind of a slow morning or afternoon, early
Maybe
evening.
they were waiting for you to get to the chat
Yeah,
before
right,
asking
right,
anything,
right. So
maybe?
if you all have anything on your minds, I know I've been talking with XF, and XF is doing some things, and
Because I do need to change this.
huh,
Oh, nothing. I'm just.
in support of T and O's information. And I'm
Awesome.
glad to hear it. I like to see people talking about T and O,
He's done
their
some good
information.
videos.
Yeah, and he's a excellent video maker, And so when he puts his mind to things, he does a good job with it, which he's done a lot of in the past. So um, let me see. Let's move on to. So I was talking about still the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which if you join me late, you won't hear what all I said about it that I talked about, but you can listen to tape 283 and get it for yourself directly. Of course, I encourage that to do that. But Though was comparing the way that archaeologists and those that are the writers of like books like Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and the book about the pyramids. Which one was it again? Decoded. But that looks good. The pyramids decoded. I do like them. I almost had one today. Um, that the writers of books and things, and the people that wrote, the Bible and things like that, the manuscripts, were hunting down all the manuscripts, and the archaeologists were digging and found the Nag Hammadi library and found the, the library at Qumran and all that. And um, uh, trying to figure out from what my notes said what I was saying about that. They make it seem that what was presented was not what was because they put it in a different light through their intellectualism. Yes, I'll bring you another example of that. Is that Mr. Balsh, as well intended as he is, and I don't have any fault with him, um, and other sociologists, and they're going to only see parts of the story that is within their own hunt to see. And they've and others and Mr. Balsh and others, because I know Rob, personally. I've visited with him a number of times, and he came out to my house in 1998 around there at that time where I was in New York, and I gave him a bunch of tapes of things, and so I certainly respect a lot of what he's done. Um, but it does turn it into something else. Um, like to report about T and Do as the UFO cult, you actually get a version that even might be nicer to us, I think he said, in some ways, uh, in comparison to the account of Jesus in Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm not getting this completely straight. So I encourage, if Rob happens to, tune into this, to listen to the tape to see what he said about uh, Rob Walsh. Um, because one of the things that Rob said, since I'm talking about some of the things that he wrote, um, was that this was different than other cults, the way I remember it. And to me, that was a very powerful perspective to have because of how easy it is to think that it's all the same thing. once a cult, always a cult. So um, because they didn't have all the bad behaviors. They didn't have any of the bad behavior. I mean, except for the way that people determined that they were completely misguided and wrong about everything. And so, therefore, by them teaching that wrong information, they were misguiding people that, had a need to belong to something or to believe in something. And so was offering them. And so, even if that was the case for some, okay, uh, um, that's what the seeking process is all about. Having a need for learning the truth about why we exist, even if it's not conscious that we're doing that, but a quest for information, a quest to understand what's happening in these groups that are all labeled as cults is, to me, that's a thirst for the truth. And you will get led to the truth, but doesn't mean that you're going to see it and you're going to continue to see it because you can see it at one point and then uh, if we listen to the thoughts that are going to tell us that it's not the truth, or we don't even like what it's talking about, it's just disconnected.
Well, I wouldn't.
It's just disconnected.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it. Does it all the time.
I know it's
Anyway.
reconnecting, but I'm not broadcasting when it's happening, so I have to wait for the
Oh.
happening. So I have to wait for the
Oh.
reconnection to happen.
P12. Oh, there it is, right there. There it is, right there. Ah. What were you saying?
I was talking about Rob Balch and some of his perspective, but I think I was done.
And then you were reading what Joseph Coates said.
Yes, I read that already.
I,
Oh,
I
someone
thought that you
named
were going to say something.
about Joseph Coates.
I don't
About well, I didn't know. I didn't remember actually talking about Rob Balch in tape 281 and 282. But now that I think about it, I think I do remember in one of those tapes, his name did come up. I just didn't say much about him. I don't know. It's very foggy now in my brain.
know. Yeah, I'm not.
I get mixed up, when I heard what. Not too long after I heard it. So, so forgive me
You
for
are
that, Joseph
74.
Coates.
You are 74.
Yeah, I am 74, so I have that excuse. But I've probably always been this way.
Oh, shoot.
So anyway, hey Soyodi, it's me, CNTODY. Um, Here, I have a question. Who were the last two students to exit their vehicles? I read that the class exited in groups and there were last two students. Who were they? Well, I'm pretty sure Liv Odie was one, and I think Jan Odie might have been the other one. But that's the kind of fact that I can get wrong. But Doe was,
I'm pretty sure you can find that out from a website. You weren't actually
yeah,
there, so you don't.
right. I can just go by what was uh actually their schedule that they put on a piece of paper that was published. I mean, not published, but it was out in the media.
Yeah, I don't know where that was. Somebody sent
It
them
might
to
have been
you.
from, yeah, I got it sent to me
Maybe from the
recently.
sheriff's. I think it was from the sheriff's, whatever that's called. Sorry.
Yeah, the coroners.
I don't know about the coroner's report because that's different. I think it was like the sheriff's investigation report or something.
But there was also a list of what they were going to consume and who was going to leave in which group.
Yeah, if they were going to have applesauce or pudding.
Yeah, so that's in their handwritten
Yeah,
form.
yeah.
It's a document. Someone that might be here, like XF, might know where you can find that.
I know Casey does, but I don't know if he's here or not.
I bet XF would have access to it,
Yeah.
but
Well, I
maybe
know
you got rid
Casey
of it.
like shared that exact file actually in one of the Heaven's Gates
He did,
rooms.
and he sent it to me again, and I don't know where I put
Yeah.
it, and I
So
don't want to go through the
it's
trouble of
it's
finding
like
it right
a
now.
300-page document or something. It's quite lengthy and detailed.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that much.
I mean, I think I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm
okay.
correctly.
Was that the same as the FBI report?
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I know he had that, and I've seen that too. And yeah, there's a lot in it, and I don't know what all's in there actually, much. I don't remember much of it. I kind of scanned it at one point.
It says.
Maybe it is that long. So XF says, watched Rob Balch the other day talk about Heaven's Gate in the 1998 documentary The Day After that I saw many times. I don't agree with some of his points, but I trust him far more than Mr. Zeller. And then CNTOY says, hope their exits were humane and they did not experience any pain or suffering. I read in the media that some members had a hard time exiting and were suffering during the suffocation.
Why are we talking about this?
Well, because CNTODY is
Yeah, I
bringing it
know,
up.
but I'm just asking, like, why are you?
I'm gonna try to help him with it, with that. Um, yes, they were humane, and there's no evidence that anybody had any suffering from the coroner. They said it was a peaceful environment, and there's people that are making it up, and they're saying things about it that didn't happen. And I don't know if anybody um, the putting of the bag over their heads uh, was uh, insurance, so they weren't in a coma. Um, but the drugs probably did 90% or 95% or some huge amount, according to the coroner, of their decease. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's a lot of things that you can read about that are examples of some of what I've been talking about during the stream. How the intellectuals and the people that are doing the writing about everything, they end up reporting some of the facts, but they don't know what's really going on. They don't know what really happened, or it gets skewed. And the idea of suffering then takes on another. I'd be really careful with the words we choose because to describe things, because one person's suffering is when you don't have enough to eat. You know, I mean, or not some not. I mean, your second meal of the day isn't exactly what you want, so you suffered through not having lunch. That can be the way that people use terminology, and other people can say that the person was suffering for this money, this much time, and therefore it wasn't humane. You know, so it can be very, but this is the way that the society goes. Because you know who rules the society? The misinformation mind rules the society. And you're going to have all kinds of people saying all kinds of things. And yeah, seek out the facts. Seek out the facts if that's something that a direction you want to go in. So that you can actually speak the truth to people that are accusing things happening that weren't happening. In my opinion, that's making a positive out of it because the facts, speak for themselves for those that have an ear to hear or an eye to see. It's interesting how hearing and seeing are two different functions that like that both have a sense of being prepared for, that it takes preparation. That's why, there's that, and time is that preparation. Um, and repetition is part of that preparation. And we are preparing our vehicles every time we are reading about the words that came from T and Do instead of the words that other people say came from T and Do. I mean, the closer we are to the source, uh, the the better, I believe. Anyway, so what would happen? See, I can't really address hyper. Um, um, it's making me think, CNTODY, that you're not actually uh, a person that it's like you're stimulating negative thoughts. I'm not even going to read your comment.
Yeah, I don't
And if
either.
you're going to continue to do that, I just don't really want you to be here because you're not bringing up anything of value to consider the things of what would happen if this happened, if this didn't happen, and all that. And your previous comment had that vibration as well, and Kathy knew it right away. But I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt that you weren't actually trying to stimulate negativity. I'm beginning to think that you are working for somebody else, and I was having that sense before
Yeah, me too. But
with you, and I don't want to accuse you falsely of anything, but I think you do need to prove to me that uh, um, uh, that you don't have that intention of bringing negatives to this stream, that negatives that are of no value. I tried to give you a response to the first one because I know there are people that are circulating that thinking. Okay, and I gave you the benefit of the doubt with that, and so for you to come back with another
uh,
thought that's worse,
so can we just like move past it and
yeah,
maybe delete those comments so they're not viewable by everybody?
yeah, that's a good
Because
idea.
it offended me too, and I don't want to hear that or talk about it. I don't, yeah. And it's not avoiding it or whatever. You can go search the internet and do that. It's highly insensitive to be saying that kind of stuff.
So Santori says, I apologize for that. I am just in deep regret for not joining the class in the mid 90s when I saw you and two others in a meeting.
Right, right, right. I don't know if you remember from the prior stream, that was
Yeah,
kind of
you're
how it went
still
down
talking
too.
with the same voice.
So let's just, go past that person, and I think it's Mark. He likes to focus on that and try to get you to say
Yeah,
something like, yes, you should,
right,
everybody should,
right.
do this,
See,
do
this
that,
comment is the same thing.
join up, blah, blah, blah.
It's the same thing.
Like, get out of here. Like, stop. Just stop. It's not, this isn't.
And if you continue with this vein of thought, chats or whatever, I'm just going to block you because I'm not interested in having these made up ideas. You're not even facing anybody with the truth. You're just making stuff up.
And then they'll say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I didn't mean that. I just wanted
Yeah.
to know." And then you'll feel bad, and then they'll do the same thing. So,
Well, I didn't tell you this the first time if you're still
silly,
listening here, but I didn't. I
silly
knew that
games.
you weren't given that name by Doe.
Well, they were saying that they like, had a dream or whatever that they asked
Right.
Doe. They're not saying that like in real life. They said in like 2000 or something. So it was after Doe had already left. He's not saying that they were like in front of Doe.
I'm not saying how it happened,
But that they
but I don't
did
believe
say
it.
but they did say how it happened in the
I
last
know.
stream.
I'm not saying, I'm not trying to talk about this individual, how they believe what happened.
Right.
But I'm saying that it doesn't echo what I understand as Doe's mind. It sounds like you were influenced by one of the lower forces to think that it was Doe. And don't, that's not a negative. That's not saying anything negative about you because we're all influenced by the lower forces at different times in different ways to different degrees. And
Well,
nobody on earth is void of that. So, but there are signs of whether something is true or not. And there's no indication that Doe would be giving people Odie names because Odie names were for those that were with him. And it was very important to be with him physically in bodies to receive an Odie name. You couldn't receive it from somebody else giving it to you, except by T and or Doe. Like a student couldn't meet somebody else on the street and say to them, "Why don't you become an Odie?" That'd be like saying you can be in my classroom, and you can't be in their classroom if the classroom's not here, and the classroom's not here. So we can't be in that same classroom. They even talked about it in the book that that same classroom is not being offered anymore. So there is no exit by one's own hand to accomplish anything except doing the same thing that humans do when they're upset and talk about wanting to talk about exiting by their own hands. Because to get around learning lessons that are necessary to have a human vehicle to learn. That's why our position is against suicide. I say our, meaning any member of anyone that wants to be a student to T and O. They're going to be against suicide because they know that we are humans. We have human vehicles that are very much alive and very much wanting to execute their own agenda for themselves. And some of them want to be something. Some of them want to, overcome addictions. So if you want to stay in this stream, then whenever you're in the chat, I would ask you to restrain yourself and ask if Tiendo would say this or that. And if you keep on coming up with stuff that doesn't seem to be from my perspective and my check partner's perspective from Tiendo's mind, because all it does is lead to misinformation and uh, misunderstandings and half truths and
just negativity.
just plain negativity. Well, then I'm gonna have to treat you as a troll at that time, and then
Can we move past that?
eventually block you. Yeah. Okay. I'm blocking him.
More of the same.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Yeah.
You're not a true student of Tiendo. You don't know what you're talking about.
So you can still listen, but you can't
That's
respond
fine.
anymore.
Trust me. Unless you want to, but I feel like just go on with what the stream was originally.
Yeah, old school Dave, I don't really appreciate that, but I know you're just being silly. But I take what just happened very seriously. So anyway, let's move on. Let's see, we've got three individuals watching now. Hmm. I guess everybody left except for you still logged in? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
I feel
I'm going to be
Decoded is not
closing soon anyway
necessarily accurate.
because I think I've gone through a lot. The things I wanted to talk about in the tape, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, that I put in the title.
To me, it says there's 9 people still here.
Really? How come
Yeah.
mine says there's three?
And hello, everyone. Is above. Yeah, old school Dave. He knows that. I think you know that kaboom was directed at the guy. The kaboom that old school Dave did.
Oh, I didn't know there was a kaboom.
I. Do you not have live chat on?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And then you said that you felt it was serious.
Oh, yeah, the kaboom. Okay. Yeah, no, I wasn't thinking that was about me. I didn't see that one. I just saw where you called him by some name that sounded like, you know, a body part in the pronunciation of it. So I don't want to repeat it. And maybe you didn't see that because I deleted it. I removed it. Yeah.
Well, since I'm an admin, I can look at it.
Did you see it?
No, but I could.
Yeah, go ahead. It wasn't terrible. I'm not
No,
mad at you
old
or
school
anything, old
Dave's
school
not
Dave.
terrible.
I know it was directed at him. I get you. I know what you're being supportive of us, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, Carloti, I
Um,
think, called it out.
right, Carlotti. Yeah, threatening to exit your vehicle demonstrates that you are trying to get attention for all the wrong reasons. This feels like a troll and a dangerous one at that. Get a better hobby.
Carloti, I think we all know who that was.
Yeah, that's they're trying to,
It's
th-
always the same tactic. It's like try to get him to say yes, kill yourself,
yeah, right.
or even though 1,000 times, 1,000.
They're so stupid. I mean, but
But
they
that's
think they're smart.
honestly what.
That's the problem. See, this is what the lower forces do. They try to entrap people. You see it throughout the human kingdom. Look at what's happening all in the human kingdom
Well,
right
and it
now,
is a wearing down by
especially.
sheer numbers. It's a wearing down by sheer
Yeah, just
numbers.
keep on doing it, keep on doing it, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're
they're
saying?
they're infinite. Like they're as far as in our eyes, like these beings are immortal. They can hound us even past death. Could be really hopeless.
Yeah, Carlotti's saying Mark, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
if it's not Mark, it's somebody that's working with the same mind. I'm not going to say if it's him or not.
It just seems like there's, or maybe it's that influence. It's very like it's like emails that you
Yeah,
get where it's just like,
yeah,
oh, blah 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 blah. It's like, okay.
right. I've had a few people come in and say, I'm Doe, I'm reincarnated Doe, and haven't had it much.
Or tea.
Yeah, or T, and then they
Or
say a few
sending
more
me
words, and
random.
I right away know that I know they're wrong right from the
But
beginning.
then they just disappear.
Actually, yeah, they disappear, which is good.
It's like, okay, well, what's up? Like, what's going on? And then zoop, gone.
Yes, good. He banned, says Carloti. Joseph is still here. And Rise Above says he sees 10 people.
Yeah, there's 10 here now, too.
But my thing says
You're tripping. Your thing's tripping.
3 watching now.
Are you on OBS or YouTube?
That's
YouTube.
YouTube.
Sorry, since your screen's a different color, I can't see it right now.
I
I
mean,
don't know what's going on.
it is behind, but why would it be just saying 3?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Joseph Coates is still here.
Wow, yes. Wow.
Now there's
Thanks,
11.
Rise Above, says Carlody. Carl, I guess Rise Above would read it. So I don't need to necessarily
Yeah, he just says he
say
thinks
everything.
yeah. You don't. It's true.
I like seeing you all talk together. It's anyway. Let's see. Tape. Back to the tape. Let's see if I completed that. Yeah. Then Doe goes on to talk about how it was funny that this guy Gene Scott uh, was from Los Angeles, and he quotes from 2 books in his TV shows. I think he was doing satellite shows. That's how I think Doe was watching him. And he has, and at the time he had shows that were almost around the clock, some 24 hours a day. And he doesn't know how many are repeats. And he talks about the Great Pyramid Decoded, and he liked very much, but it's almost like the opposite. Like in the Great Pyramid is good. At the end, he tells you what he believes is the mystery of the Great Pyramid, the Giza Pyramid. And if you haven't read it, he wanted the students to read it. I
That
don't think I remember reading it.
there's two different versions though. So you know, because I know I have one, and one of the students was talking about that too. There's a big version, and then the small one that Doe is actually referring to. Because the big one is at least I don't know 300 plus pages, and this one I believe you referred to as almost like a pamphlet or a
Hmm.
paperback. Maybe that's what he
Well, he said
said.
that about Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
I
That.
thought it was about the
Oh, he
pyramid,
said they were both paperbacks, didn't he?
the Great Pyramid Decoded. Because I have one. I have a book called The Great Pyramid Decoded, but it is big. I mean, it's thick. It's not like a small paperback. I consider a paperback like, 100 to 200 pages. Anyway,
But again, Doe was talking about how he felt that the next level had some things that were secrets that that wouldn't be given to the students until they were on solid ground first, and that he was he didn't know if students would get that, how they would get that, or if he would be used to to talk about those secrets. And you'll see in a previous tape, he talks about that too, that he's got some things on his mind that he couldn't share until students had experience with being ready for it.
oh my god, a whole ass motorhome just drove past us.
Because he was talking about that some things are, well, he said that he sent sorority on a task to find out when Jesus' birthday was.
Oh yeah,
And he realized um, that the archaeologists have said that it was September 29th, BC, and and that April 3rd, 33 A.D. was the date of the crucifixion.
My birthday was April 7th.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm gonna go with my chips in the room so I'm not crunchy.
but that is interesting actually. That it would have been September and April because those are the times right after the the spring solstice or the spring equinox and the fall equinox. Wait, maybe it's not called equinox. No, the equinoxes are only, yeah, there's two equinoxes, the spring and the fall equinox, I think. Unless there's I'm losing that part of my remembrance of the terminology application. I know solstices is another way to, but every month has a solstice. And I forgot what they're based on in terms of astronomically. But it's been my observation for a long time that certain things, like he used to say that what the new moon promises, the full moon fulfills, which I think was a saying in astrology. Anyway, but and that um, I was able to observe over the years, since the class left, that things would repeatedly happen in terms of comets, seeing eye comets, and near miss asteroids that were within the moon's orbit is what I'm calling a near miss asteroid, and also other signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, which is a whole other subject. I mean, it's not another subject, but stars meaning from the root word of aster is a light strewn through the heavens. So a comet would therefore be like a sign or a marker that Jesus said would be coming. When he said you would see lightning strewn from east to west, if you correctly interpret that, more correctly, more accurately interpret it with what the Greek words actually meant, then there's no way that you couldn't justifiably use that information to determine that he might have been talking about comets, in addition to other things that he might have been talking about in that regard, like meteors or asteroids, objects that to us look like shooting stars, to someone, even though, or fireballs. Fireballs, I don't think that wasn't an old terminology to use to describe certain events that were happening with fire in the sky. Um, until they were happening. I first documented them in one of my first videos that I made. That's still on my YouTube channel. You can see some footage of the one that was there were two fireballs that you'll see some footage of, little bit, little clips I captured at the time when I made those documents. And one of them was in Canada, extending from like parallel with the border in the south of Canada, like from Saskatchewan. No, from like Manitoba or no, from Alberta to potentially just in Alberta, Calgary, or maybe it was going towards Edmonton. I forgot what the actual latitude was of that object, but it lit up the whole sky and the ground. You could see the shadow that it made over the ground as the light passed by, and and then there was one that went south from kind of like Dallas to Austin direction, but it might not have been Dallas. It might have been Houston to Austin, actually, because the angle that it had. And you can see that there was a running event at the time when it happened, where people were, running, like a marathon kind of thing. What's that? Really? Mysterious companion with the interstellar object Atlas? Yeah. Okay. And so I think kind of what I said in the last live stream is actually showing itself to be potentially true. I say potentially because I don't assume that it's true, that there are other objects with that, what we're seeing as the Atlas, three-eye Atlas. People look back on the first recollection of a comet that was named after the observatory that found it. It was also Atlas. And I'm only bringing that up because it broke into a whole bunch of parts. And I said at the time, and this was after I wrote my book, so it's not in the book. I remember I was saying at the time that I wondered if that was showing us that there were a bunch of spacecrafts with that object. Because that wasn't the first companion object, by the way. Also, Hale Bopp wasn't the first companion object. Uh, well, I might be wrong about that. But there were subsequent comets that had companion objects. One was called the Pan-STARRS. The first Pan-STARRS that I was aware of had an object in the front of its coma, so like riding in front of it, and it looked like a black dot. Is that right? Interesting. And I remember the NASA person that posted this picture of Comet Pan-STARRS saying he didn't know what that black object was, and he was hoping that somebody in NASA can tell him, which he was in NASA. So, but when I saw that, I thought, now, see, that happened, I think it was April of, um, I don't know, it was right after, I think it was maybe the year after Hal Bopp, Pan Stars. I'll look it up because I've got it. Uh, yeah, I've got copies on my blog of it, I believe, picture of the Pan Stars. I used it as my icon in one of the Facebook pages I had before I had Sawyer Heaven's Gate, or maybe simultaneous to Sawyer Heaven's Gate that I'm not using anymore. But that's interesting that Tsunodi was talking about something that was saying that two would be coming to, because there's Hopi prophecies of the two coming. I don't know what she was referring to because I could barely hear Tsunodi, or maybe that was Milodi saying that. I could barely hear individuals, so. But Tsunodi was talking about, if it was the same person, about the special dispensation. And Doe was talking about that. That, uh, let me see if I can get the context of it. Yeah, I think the special dispensation was helping uh, members of the group. Um, uh, um, I don't want to go any further than that because that could apply also to individuals that right now uh, recognize Doe as their older member. And anybody who comes to recognize him as an older member, anybody that's even curious, it could apply to about whether Doe is truly an older member from the next level and the return. So Doe also in tape 283 briefly talked about how the things that were happening with Watergate, because they were talking about the years 78 and 79 that had some astronomical aspect that Doe felt like 1978, 1979 were a time of turnaround when things started falling apart on Earth. Yeah, like the beginning of the last week Doe was talking about. He was calling something the last week, and I, I, I think he was referring to the last week of Daniel's prophecy at the time, um, which can be interpreted as 70 years as well. And so we don't know when that might, if that was the case, then we don't know when that started and when it ends exactly. But if it was 70 years from uh, when the class got here, or from 78, when things began to turn around, 79, then you can just add to it and then, maybe that's part of the time frame of when things are going to be wrapped up. Because that would be like 2040 something or 2050. Oh, is that right? Maybe. I know I talked about the 2040s as seeming like a significant period of time. Because the one thing in terms of time frames, I'm not predicting any time frames. Okay, well I guess I am in a little way. I'm just talking about references to those because Doe did that too. Okay, so I don't feel like that's the wrong thing to do, but well, I don't want to put too much stock in it. I mean, it's not the problem with time frames is we can say, oh well, if I got that long, I guess I don't have to do anything. You know, and of course nobody has to do anything, but hitting the deck running is always the case with the next level. And hitting the deck running isn't defined in any one certain way, especially when the older members aren't with us incarnate anymore. But that doesn't mean that uh, it's not start. It's not part of the same. They gave the formula in Junodi's away team, which is to separate from the human kingdom. But that didn't mean leaving your body behind. Because in the away team document, away team from deep space services before departure talks about that the lesson plan is for the souls that are returning is to get their information out. You need a vehicle to get your information out. They knew that there would be people left behind that would want to get their information out. That's why Doak talked about in the Beyond Human tapes and in the exit tapes that of their exit talked about there being three categories of individuals that would be saved for the future classroom, or for that would be qualified for significant service in the next level. And the first group were those that were with him. The second group were those that had weaknesses, but recognized their older member. The third group were people that didn't even know about Tiendo, but were separating from the world in their own way. And he brought up what some people would think of as an extreme view of that, but does give us a pretty broad view as being those that had gone, that were no longer, I'm trying, that were no longer um, giving their allegiance to the governments of this world. But that didn't mean that they were um, uh, trying to go against the governments of this world, because we don't want to be interfered with. So we're not against the government. We want to live by their all their rules, all their laws, so that they don't interfere with us, whether they're laws that came from the minds of the members of the next level or not. And a lot of them, probably most of them, didn't come from the next level. Because even the law from the next level to not kill other humans, that all the other religions, well, I don't know if all of them do, but Judaism and Christianity, I don't know about Islam, uh, are supposed to be against capital punishment, except they've redefined, uh, you know, that to apply that that was only a law like you shall not kill. They say means that you shall not murder. In other words, you shouldn't kill with a premeditation. But what are the wars? You're going to say that they're not premeditated, but yet they think that weren't premeditated because they were defensive. That's how they justify it. That's how the lower forces come in and have you justify doing things that the next level thinks is a lesson that needed to be learned by sixth graders, not the way we are now, where a lot of people are approaching 12th grade. Don't felt like even the 60s, with all the craziness all over the globe, was because there were spacecrafts that were close enough with their minds in them that were entering the atmosphere. And humans were acting as crazy as animals would act if UFOs landed in their corral. That's a good view, right? We should do a cartoon like that. You see all the humans,
Absolutely.
how we act. Um,
As these kids start screaming
and
more.
like in No Law and Order is part of that. Even though, you know, to where, they were focusing on Watergate, right, as this big crime, when they've been doing that all along, leaking things to the press, like Nixon was doing, telling lies to the people, using the press. That was happening in World War I and World War II. I don't know if it happened in the Civil War, but I bet it did. Because the average person doesn't want to go to war and kill people and be killed. So you got to convince them to do it. There were over 1 million people that were draft dodgers in World War I. I read.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. But if you were a draft dodger then, and you got found out, they would kill you. You were accused of treason. And if you were on in the war and you left, then I don't know if they would hunt you down, but they would court-martial you and probably sentence you to death because that's how primitive they were still. And some of that primitiveness it may be coming back. It certainly is. Doesn't mean it takes the same shape and form.
So while you're saying that, I'm watching this video of this guy breakdancing during a town hall meeting. This guy's face back there, and the recorder person said, "I've started your time," and he just want to see me do a backspin. Oh boy.
Is he a dependent or
No, he's just at a town hall meeting and he
oh town
decided he
hall?
was going to break dance for his time up there. And everybody's just kind of sitting there staring at him.
Let's see what new is in the stream.
Uh, I think his meds just kicked in. Cranford Town meeting. Mm.
I agree with you, XF. XF said that all I'll say is that people should stop obsessing about how Heaven's Gate left and start obsessing over the information they left behind. That's where the truth is for the human race and their future. I agree with you 100%.
That's
Kathy Southwestern said, well said, XF. Rise Above says Jewish Passover festival was where Christ was crucified, which is right near the spring equinox. Ah, there you go. That's right. It was the Passover, of course. And you know what? On the Passover of, well, on Easter Sunday um, was broadcast the interview that Just Odie and Just Odie's vehicle's daughter and I were engaged in at the studios of 60 Minutes in New York City. That was on broadcast on Easter Sunday. It was recorded on the Saturday before Easter Sunday. They got a name for that.
Yeah.
And they were going to try to uh, use all three segments based on those interviews that happened then with us. But they didn't have time to format all three segments, so they stuck something else into the third segment. And they just did two segments on. And the only other time that they had done all three segments on one story was the Reagan about when they covered Ronald Reagan. I'm not sure if there were multiple covering of Ronald Reagan, but this is what the producer said. He said this from the information box that was overlooking the whole room. It was a big room with big high ceilings, and he was in the back in the information booth, and he was talking to us through the loudspeaker. I forgot his name, but he's passed away since then. Some years ago, I heard that. But he was the producer of 60 Minutes. So XF says this small trailing object behind 3i Atlas reminds me of the companion that trailed Hale Bopp in 1996. There's one thing that's a little different about it that, according to what Kathy said, that the object was sighted in front of Hale Bopp. I mean, not Hale Bopp, in front of Atlas, 3i Atlas.
I think
Uh,
that's what it said. I could be wrong,
okay, well,
but I think that's what the article said.
yeah, so,
I skimmed it really quickly.
yeah,
I
so,
sent it to you.
okay, well, we'll look at it again to see if that's the case. But the companion object I don't think was ever cited as in front of, but then again, maybe it was because it depends on how you look at it in relationship to the sun, right? Whether it would be seen as in front of or not. Um, because I only seen the pictures of the companion object that if you're looking at the Hale-Bopp comet, it's off to the like the right side of it from our view. It would be the left side of the comet. So maybe the companion object is T's craft, and the Hale-Bopp comet has another object with it that's on the right hand of T, like though coming back with on the right hand of power. Because I think that's Revelation 19 is depicting the return on the right hand of power that Jesus talked about. Because I don't think, but he did come back on the right hand of power when he came back in his vehicle. And I don't know if you'll see him all the time, but you'll see him in the 1976 in the picture that we have on some shirts of T and Doe, where Doe is standing and T is sitting. He is to the right of T in that picture, I believe. And I don't know if that was accidental or, one of those things that they just felt to do that way and didn't really think about it as fulfilling prophecy, potentially, because they weren't trying to fulfill prophecy ever. Never. They weren't trying to appear that way. They never talked like that. Never is not the appropriate way of saying that, but I don't want to give it all the qualifications because they did recognize that there were prophecies being fulfilled, and they knew that the one about the two coming was a prophecy that was they were fulfilling. And so technically, the two coming was T and O coming. It wasn't uh, um, the return that was the soul Jesus, but that happened in 1990s when Doe came public again, and the students were the instruments of their interface with the public in 1994. But Doe was, uh, 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 he was. But if you look at the posters that are in the Heaven's Gate book about that coming, you'll see that he's talking about one of the posters. I don't know who wrote it because I wrote some posters, but I don't remember if mine were used for my meeting or for other meetings. I doubt it for other meetings, but for my meetings, the meetings that I was part of and the main speaker for, uh, we had a little printer, tiny, tiny printer, and we had a compact computer. And so we printed out our own meeting poster that we would take to the printer to make into posters. And sometimes they sent us the poster through the RS-232 connection, the modems that we had. Um, and then is that the way they sent it to us? Or maybe they faxed it to us? I'm not sure now how that happened sometimes. But one of those posters was "He's back, they're back," something like that. Started off with that title. So Rise Above says, I listened to tape 282 and thought it was really interesting. It was a great look into the classroom, how things were done and what was expected. It's amazing the tapes are there, even just for history. It is amazing. It is amazing. And the reason they are here is because the next level wants them to be here. They see to it. They have a crew that works on that. That's why I know that if we don't get another tape, it doesn't. It means that we don't need it. Simple as that in my mind. And Rise Above says the reason I say that is because the information should be public for study, whether it's someone studying it for history and sociological reasons or for a more personal reason. I believe that 100%. I know Kathy feels that way. Same, I believe. And Carlotti says exactly Rise Above. I've given the class info to professors that I disagree with. Censorship is a tool of the weak. And then Rise Above says, Carlotti, I don't want to overstate this like I am blowing smoke, but sharing that information has been so important in so many ways. Thank you so much. It is important. It's the most important thing we can do, I believe, as recognition of for history or for recognition of uh, Tiando's teachings. That I mean, that's the reason it's most important to me. But I can see how it's to other people it's important as a historical perspective, and I have no criticism of that. I'm just catching up. I didn't know if I saw everything in the chat. Um, yeah, what you're talking about, Rise Above, is very significant. If people could actually recognize how difficult it was because of how we have so many things that are ingrained in us that uh, can be worked on. And it's not a negative to have those things because it presents us with what there is to overcome. And that you couldn't be forced to do that. And when Tiendo talked about that, they said that, you know, sometimes we wish we could just play tapes and you'd play them at night when you were sleeping and you'd learn from osmosis. But they said it doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. You have to have your own experience. You have to go after it. T and Do, when they were here, are were providing the opportunity for that because if they didn't provide it, we wouldn't go after it. We wouldn't know it even has any value.
I was listening to Beyond Human #1 today because that's my favorite one. Um, I didn't really listen to it. I went to sleep to it, but when I woke up, um, Joe was talking about how the next level had chosen him and the class to be the vessels of the information and how to go from being human to being in the next level. I thought that was
Hmm. And that those people were extended to those that were doing that even after they left, teaching about not teaching themselves as as teachers, but as students trying to share their teaching. Then you're sharing if you're sharing the same things they shared, which I mean you can't share it all at once, of course.
it was around
There's too
50.
much information.
It was around 54 minutes. The
Hmm.
54-minute one.
54 minutes into the Beyond Human Session 1. Anybody that wants to look it up.
Which is available on Venmeo by.
Right. You can watch it on Vimeo, under the Heaven's Gate, which is the site where Mark and Sarah posted it for the public to see. Rise Above is saying, I'm not saying it's strictly history for me, only that it should be in the public space for study, no matter what one's reasons are. I agree with you. I wasn't I wasn't trying to, uh, the way I respond wasn't responding to you directly in that case, Rise Above. I was just talking to anybody, that's getting value from that material. Um, and Rise Above says, I put them on when I go to bed, and when I wake up, I go back to where I last remember laughing out loud. But it's a great way to do it and has a relaxing effect on me. Yep. I put them on when I go. Oh, you already said that. I got it twice. Okay, that's good. So I guess
I do
if
that
there's
too.
nothing else, I think it's time to, you know, because I could go through more of the
No,
tape,
it's
but
time. I'm so
um,
tired.
I think I went through enough. It's been a pleasure as usual, and so good luck. Good luck, everybody, or good night. I never say good luck, right?
Mhm.
Good night, folks.